Okay, so tomorrow you have a test. The test is going to cover sections 2.1 to 2.4. In 2.1, we learned how to combine like terms by adding and multiplying. So just like in the homework, you're going to get problems where they're going to just ask you to combine them. So like 10 plus 15 plus 5, and they're going to say to simplify. So you would just add those all up. 10 plus 15 is 25 plus 5, and you would tell me it's 30. Now you might get a question where it might be 2x times 3y times 4z. So you would multiply the coefficients. 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24, and then you put x, y, z right behind it. So you're going to get 4 questions where you're going to have to multiply or add your like terms. Then also in 2.1, we learned about the properties. You need to memorize the properties. You will have 6 property questions. Now, there are also a couple property questions in section 2. So the properties are coming from both 2.1 and 2.2. So in 2.1, we saw commutative, associative, and closure. And then we also saw reflexive, transitive, and symmetric. And remember to include the property of addition or the property of multiplication for that commutative and associative. For reflexive, symmetric, and transitive, you're going to include the words property of equality. If you want to abbreviate property of addition as POA, property of multiplication as POM, you can, and then property of equality, POE. If you want to do PO plus, PO times, whatever abbreviation, as long as I can read your writing, or property of equality. So that's where the properties came from. So 6 property questions. And then you'll also have the last 10 questions on the test. They are going to be adding and subtracting. And there'll be like a whole series of numbers. It's just not going to be 2 integers. These 10 questions on adding and subtracting, they could be integers, they could be fractions, or they may also be decimals. So for example, you might get a question like -11 minus 43 plus 1 minus 9 plus 30. So, yes?
You said there were no absolute value, right?
No absolute value questions. So in a particular question like this, you can work left to right. If you'd prefer to pull out your negatives and add those, you can do that also. I'm going to work left to right and take them 2 at a time. So if I do -11 minus 43, I'm going to get -54. And then now I'm going to rewrite the rest of my problem. And now I'm going to take the next 2. And then I get -53. And then I'm going to rewrite, take the next 2. And I get -62. Rewrite, combine those, and I get -32. Okay, so however you want to do it, if you'd rather pull out all of your negative numbers, add them, pull out all the positives, add them, and then subtract, you can also do it that way. Okay, I highly recommend that you show work on this, just in case you get all the way down, maybe you're doing it like I just did, and maybe you made it all the way to this point, but maybe you messed up on combining this. I'll give you partial credit. So remember, if you show work, you can get partial credits for the problems. So a 20 question test. Again, 4 combining like terms with either multiplication or addition, 6 property questions, and then 10 adding and subtracting questions. And again, it's going to be fractions, decimals, and integers, and it's going to be more than just 2 numbers.